Do you know? The most expensive luxury bag in the world, the symbol of wealth and upper-class status, the Birkin, was first drawn on a dirty airplane vomit bag simply because a mother's diapers and milk bottles spilled everywhere. Most people think Jane Birkin is the embodiment of freedom, of passion, and boundless bohemian beauty. The immortal muse of Serge Gainsbourg, the woman who made all of Paris fall in love, the symbol of seduction and rebellion. But they were wrong. Behind that radiant smile was a girl who was once so insecure that she hid her eyeliner pencil under her pillow every night, afraid her husband would wake up and see her real face. Behind those hot love songs was a mother who had to bury her own biological daughter. Behind the glittering halo were silent struggles, nights of crying alone, and pain that money and fame could not heal. Glamorous on the outside, but tragic underneath. Jane Birkin is not a fairy tale about a lucky star. It is the story of a woman who dared to live authentically, dared to feel pain, and dared to grow old in the secret world of old money families, where people usually choose to hide their pain rather than face it. And today, for the first time, you will hear the whole truth, the story behind the legend of Jane Birkin. She was born on December 14, 1946, in Marylebone, London, into a family that had an extremely glamorous appearance of British high society during its golden age. Her father, David Birkin, was a lieutenant commander in the Royal Navy and a brave spy who had risked his life supporting the French resistance during World War II. Her mother, Judy Campbell, was a celebrated stage star who had once been the muse of the legendary composer Noel Coward. Glamorous on the outside but tragic underneath, Jane grew up in the upscale Chelsea neighborhood, surrounded by sparkling cocktail parties and houses filled with antique books. Yet inside the little girl's heart was a nameless loneliness. In the secret world of old money families, where everything seemed wrapped in fame and abundance, Jane still always felt out of place. While attending boarding school at Upper Chine on the Isle of Wight, she was frequently mocked by her friends for her skinny figure and lack of feminine curves. The other children called her half boy, half girl. Those mocking words echoed throughout her childhood years, making Jane always feel that something was wrong with her body, that she was never feminine enough. That insecurity was so deep that she longed to be as beautiful as the supermodel Jean Shrimpton, but mocked herself as only a terrible version of the idol. To cope with those unbearable psychological pressures, from the age of 16, Jane began taking sleeping pills, a silent and persistent habit that would follow her throughout her entire life. Money and a prestigious background could not protect you from the silent struggles within your own young soul. Although she always doubted that the camera lens could love her, Jane still decided to throw herself into the arts to seek recognition. At 17 years old, during an audition for the musical Passion Flower Hotel, she met John Barry, the renowned composer behind the classic scores of the James Bond film series. John was already 30 years old and extremely successful, while Jane was just a naive young girl. Despite her father's objections, Jane married him at the age of 18. That glamorous marriage quickly became a source of deep insecurity. Jane loved John to the point of worship, but she was always terrified that he would find her ugly. She called her own eyes tiny little pig eyes, and always hid an eyeliner pencil under her pillow every night. If her husband woke up in the middle of the night, she would secretly use it to put on makeup because she didn't dare let him see her bare face while sleeping. That insecurity even pushed her to accept the shocking nude scenes in the 1966 film Blow Up, just to prove to her husband that she had enough courage. The price of privilege is sometimes the utter loneliness right in the arms of the person you love. Happiness shattered quickly when she realized she was the last person to know about the painful truths in her own home. After their first daughter, Kate Barry, was born in 1967, the marriage began to crack due to John's coldness and affairs. There were nights Jane stayed awake waiting while her husband was busy with pleasures outside. One night, when John admitted he had cheated with her own friend, Jane fell into a state of panic and extreme pain. She smashed eggs in the kitchen, hurt herself, and tried to drink wine to forget the pain. At the age of 21, Jane Birkin found herself standing in the middle of London with a broken heart, a small child in her arms, no money, and forced to return to live with her parents. But instead of collapsing, she made a daring decision. She packed her bags, carried little Kate to Paris to audition for the film slogan, even though she didn't know a single word of French. During the audition, Jane sobbed uncontrollably because she was so stressed and didn't understand the dialogue, but it was precisely that fragile and pitiful appearance that moved the filmmakers and earned her the leading role. And that was also the moment fate brought her to Serge Gainsbourg, the man who would completely change her life. The first meeting between Jane and Serge was not romantic like in the movies. If anything, it was a disaster that began with a mistaken name. Serge was then 40 years old, an arrogant, difficult artist who was still suffering after being abandoned by Brigitte Bardot. He showed a contemptuous, rude attitude and openly looked down on the clumsy English girl who couldn't speak French. In her nervousness, Jane accidentally called him ensopado de carne instead of Gainsbourg. That naive mistake made the atmosphere on set extremely tense, to the point that the director had to arrange a dinner so the two could make peace. At a nightclub in Paris that night, Jane did something no one expected. She pulled the frowning man onto the dance floor. Serge, a man who had never danced before, let the young girl lead him. The offbeat steps and bursts of hearty laughter afterward completely broke through the icy shell between them. The biggest turning point happened at the end of that night, in a hotel room, but not in the way people usually imagine. Serge had drunk too much and passed out as soon as he entered the room. Instead of getting angry or feeling abandoned, Jane felt it was one of the most romantic nights of her life, because she saw the sincerity and lack of calculation in the other person. From that moment on, they became an inseparable couple. Serge not only loved Jane, he also helped her love her own flaws. He took her to the Louvre Museum, pointed to the classical paintings to prove that her slender, graceful beauty was the true standard of art. Under Serge's guidance, Jane Birkin shed her heavy makeup and the habit of secretly applying eyeliner to appear with a bare face and naturally flowing hair. In 1969, Serge Gainsbourg created the song titled Je t'aime, moi non plus, a track that was originally written for his ex-lover Brigitte Bardot. Jane agreed to record it for a very everyday and jealous reason. She could not stand the thought of Serge being in the recording studio with another woman to perform those sensitive melodies. When the recording was finished, Serge took Jane to dinner at the restaurant of the Hôtel des Beaux-Arts in Paris and quietly asked the staff to play the song. Immediately, a strange atmosphere enveloped the entire space. Jane recalled that all the couples around them stopped talking, with knives and forks frozen in midair because they were so stunned by the raw moans and heavy breathing in the song. At that moment, Serge simply smiled and said to her, "I think we have a hit." The storm of protest erupted so fiercely, it was hard to believe. The BBC in Britain, radio stations in Italy, Spain, and Sweden immediately banned it for being too obscene. Even the Vatican publicly condemned it, but this unintentionally became a massive free advertising campaign that caused record sales to skyrocket. Serge even joked that the Pope was their best publicist. In Italy, the head of the record label that released the song had to go to prison for offending public morality. The song also set a strange record in Britain when it simultaneously occupied two different positions on the charts in October 1969, simply because the old label was so scared that it pulled the record from stores, forcing another label to immediately release it again. Jane suddenly became a symbol of freedom and rebellion, even though in reality, at that time, she was still just a shy English girl who was learning French through a tape recorder and was constantly bothered by paparazzi with rude questions about whether the sounds in the song were real. The relationship between Jane and Serge was not only about music, but also a series of dramatic arguments so intense that people could turn them into a movie right on the streets of Paris. They lived together in the famous house at 5B Rue de Verneuil, a place full of art pieces, and Serge's peculiar rules of living. Their life consisted of long nights of partying at fancy nightclubs until 3 or 4 in the morning, then coming home just in time to wake the children for school. One of the craziest events happened at Castel's nightclub. In a state of drunkenness and anger at being controlled by Serge, Jane watched him turn her wicker basket upside down and dump all her belongings onto the floor in front of everyone. Without yielding, Jane grabbed a cream cake and threw it straight into Serge's face. When Serge angrily ran out onto the street, Jane chased after him along the avenues of Paris. To prove her determination and desire to make up, she ran past him and jumped straight into the freezing Seine River in the middle of the night, while still wearing her expensive Yves Saint Laurent outfit. That jump completely changed the course of the argument. When the firefighters pulled Jane out of the water, Serge was extremely moved and worried, and all the previous anger vanished completely. They walked home together, soaked but laughing happily as if nothing had happened. However, behind those impulsive romantic moments was a harsher reality. Serge's alcoholism became increasingly severe, and he became controlling and violent. Jane once recounted that during recording sessions, Serge could yell and hit her hands with a ruler if she didn't sing the notes exactly as he wanted. This deadlock gradually wore Jane down, making her feel more like a puppet than a life partner. Finally, in 1980, after 12 years together, Jane decided to leave the man she called the love of her life to save herself and her children, even though they maintained a deep friendship until the day Serge passed away. In 1981, on a flight from Paris to London, Jane was upgraded to first class and sat right next to Jean-Louis Dumas, who was then the CEO of Hermès. When she tried to stuff her bag into the overhead compartment, everything inside, from her daughter Lou's milk bottle and diapers to notebooks and documents, spilled out all over Mr. Dumas. Jane did not hesitate to complain to the stranger that she could never find a leather bag that was both stylish and spacious enough to hold all the belongings of a busy mother. Right on that flight, Jean-Louis Dumas took an airplane vomit bag and, together with Jane, began sketching the ideal bag. Jane requested that the bag be larger than the Kelly bag, with convenient compartments and a flap so that items would not fall out when moving. 1 year later, the first Hermès Birkin bag was born. Although the bag later became a symbol of wealth with a value that could reach hundreds of thousands of dollars, Jane Birkin treated it in the most ordinary way possible. She only ever owned one Birkin bag at a time, using it until it was worn out before replacing it with another. To her, the bag was just a practical item. She covered it with stickers, attached Lucky Charms with strings, wrote her children's names on the inside, and even let her children draw freely on the expensive leather. She left Serge Gainsbourg's arms and began living with director Jacques Doyon, her new partner. Because he hated anything cumbersome, he deliberately drove over and crushed the legendary wicker basket that she carried everywhere. That action not only destroyed an object, but was also Jacques' way of forcing Jane to shed her old image and step into a completely new direction in her career. During their 13 years together, this was also the period when she felt stronger, no longer relying on any man's shadow. Jane had found someone who did not want her to be a muse, but wanted her to become a real actress. Jacques Doyon saw the revolutionary authenticity in Jane and gave her heavy psychological roles that no one had dared to try before. In the 1981 film La Fille Prodigue, instead of playing a beautiful girl for men to admire, Jane was asked for the first time to portray a woman who had mentally collapsed. This change moved her deeply because for the first time she felt truly respected by the industry. She received consecutive César Award nominations for her roles in La Pirate, proving that her talent went far beyond the size in her old songs. Even after her private life had turned the page, the past between Jane and Serge still existed in a very strange and respectful way. In 1982, when Jane gave birth to her third daughter, Lou Doyon, Serge was not jealous at all. On the contrary, he sent a box of baby clothes to congratulate her and signed it Papa Deux, Daddy Number 2. Serge even became Lou's godfather and continued to write the most profound songs for Jane to sing about the very wounds left by their separation. Jane no longer sang with the voice of a naive young girl. She began to express maturity and depth of soul through the album Baby Alone in Babylon. Not stopping at art, Jane Birkin during this period also became an extremely strong social and political activist. She did not hesitate to take to the streets to protest for the rights of undocumented immigrants, fight for abortion rights, and actively participate in campaigns against the death penalty. She even traveled to disaster and war zones such as Bosnia, Rwanda, and Israel to support humanitarian organizations. Jane also sponsored a young Congolese man seeking political asylum and publicly criticized the French government's policies toward refugees in 2010. In 2018, she joined 200 artists and scientists in signing an open letter calling on politicians to take urgent action against climate change and to protect biodiversity. At the end of 2022, Jane and many other French women cut their hair to support Iranian women fighting for freedom. Throughout this time, she chose to age naturally, without cosmetic surgery, appearing with silver hair and wrinkles, proving a lifestyle of authenticity without pretense. Jane Birkin once said that her greatest achievement in life was her 3 daughters, but she could never have imagined that she would have to personally bid farewell to one of them to her final resting place. In 1991, Jane suffered 2 consecutive shocks when the most important man in her life, Serge Gainsbourg, died of a heart attack on March 2nd. Just 4 days later, while the family was still gathered around Serge's body, her father, Lieutenant Commander David Birkin, also passed away. This double loss left a terrible void in her heart. However, the greatest tragedy was still to come. On December 11, 2013, just a few days before Jane's 67th birthday, her eldest daughter, Kate Berry, died after falling from the 4th-floor window of her apartment in the 16th arrondissement of Paris. Kate was a talented fashion photographer who had collaborated with prestigious magazines such as Vogue and Paris Match, but she had been silently struggling with depression and substance dependence for many years. When the police arrived at the scene, Kate's apartment was locked from the inside, with antidepressants inside and no signs of forced entry or struggle. At that time, only her pets remained in the apartment: 3 dogs, 3 cats, and 1 parrot. The pain of losing her child caused Jane to collapse completely, and she almost withdrew from all public activities for a long time. She confessed that no words could describe a mother's pain of losing a child, and she poured all those suffocating emotions into the album Oh Pardon, Tu dormais, released in 2020, a collection of deeply sorrowful songs about loss. In addition to the mental pain, Jane also had to fight leukemia from 2002. She endured harsh steroid treatments that caused weight gain and had to receive painful blood transfusions 3 times a week. But she always maintained an optimistic attitude and rarely complained about her illness in public. Jane Birkin spent her entire life under the spotlight, but her final wish was extremely simple: to spend just 1 night alone in her own house in Paris. After many years of bravely battling illness and a minor stroke in 2021, her health began to decline noticeably in the spring of 2023. She was forced to cancel a series of planned performances, but still sent a letter to her fans saying she was an optimistic person and only needed a little more time to recover. In mid-July 2023, after nearly 2 years of being constantly accompanied by family and caregivers, Jane asked to be left alone for 1 night. On the morning of July 16, 2023, the caregiver entered and discovered that Jane Birkin had passed away peacefully in her sleep at her home in Paris at the age of 76. Her funeral was held solemnly at Saint-Roch Church on July 24th, attended by France's First Lady Brigitte Macron and many leading stars such as Catherine Deneuve and Vanessa Paradis. Outside the church, thousands of fans gathered to watch the ceremony on large screens with infinite sorrow. Afterward, her body was cremated and the ashes were placed next to her daughter Kate Berry's grave at Montparnasse Cemetery, very close to where Serge Gainsbourg rests. In her honor, in December 2025, an old bridge crossing the Saint Martin Canal in Paris was renamed Passerelle Jane Birkin. The Hermès Birkin bag, named after her, continues to be a fashion icon, and the brand has committed to donating a portion of the proceeds from each bag sold to charitable funds, as agreed with her. Jane Birkin has left us, but she left behind a vast legacy of more than 70 films, 20 music albums, and most importantly, lessons about freedom, courage, and absolute honesty with oneself. She proved to the world that true beauty does not lie in perfection, but in the traces of a life fully lived with no regrets. Jane Birkin has passed away, but I often find myself wondering, among the countless shining women of the 20th century, why does her story touch our hearts so deeply? It is not because she was once Serge Gainsbourg's muse, nor because of the Birkin bag named after her. It is because she dared to live authentically in a world that always demands women to be perfect. In the secret world of old money families, where people hide their tears behind jewelry and polite smiles, Jane chose to stand outside. She dared to grow old with silver hair, dared to cry over the loss of her child in public, dared to cut her hair to support Iranian women, and dared to say no to her own name when she learned it was linked to animal suffering. She taught us that authenticity is the ultimate luxury that money cannot buy. I share with you, the women who are listening to this story, that there are nights when I sit writing about Jane with tears rolling down my face. Because in her, I see the reflection of so many of us. Girls who were once insecure about their bodies, who once sacrificed too much for love, who once strained to maintain a perfect appearance before the world, while inside were silent struggles no one knew about. Jane reminds us that we do not need to be perfect to be loved. We only need to dare to be ourselves. Her life is a gentle but powerful whisper. Live in such a way that when you look back, you will not regret having tried to become someone else. Whether you are a busy mother, a woman healing from the wounds of marriage, or a girl still searching for herself, Jane Birkin is smiling from somewhere and saying, you have the right to live authentically. If today's story touches a small corner of your heart, please leave Jane a like as a way for us to honor authenticity together. Please subscribe to the channel to continue the journey of discovering upper-class women who dared to live differently. And most importantly, please comment with one sincere sentence. What are you hiding and not yet daring to live authentically? Thank you for staying until the final seconds of this long video. We are not just watching a story. We are reflecting on our own lives together. See you in the next video. Jane Birkin will forever be a part of our hearts.